Okay, it is time for a weekly coronavirus update. I think weekly is sort of the right timing to do these. We're now not really following day to day data, but more looking at things week over week and looking at trends and changes to cases and deaths and vaccinations. So let's jump right in. Things are still looking continually better. They're looking better than last week on average, but there's now sort of a word of caution about some of the last few days of data. And again, because we're looking week over week, I don't think we should read too much into it now, but I'll explain momentarily. From the standpoint of coronavirus cases, cases are now down 72% from their average peak, which took place on January 11th. On January 11th, our 7-day average was 255,000 new cases per day. When we think back to June of 2020, when Dr. Fauci said, if we're not careful, we might get to 100,000 cases a day. And many deniers said that'll never happen. And we got to 100,000 and 150 and 200, and we were averaging 255,000 new cases a day the week of January 11th. We are now down from that peak by 72%, 72% decline in new daily cases to about 70,000 per day. But, and here's that word of caution, the decline has leveled off in the last few days, and there was even a slight average day-to-day uptick yesterday. Now, a lot of people have been asking and emailing me and tweeting to me, is this an actual reversal? Are cases now going to go up? I don't think so. I think it's possible that if indeed the vaccines are shown to be ineffective against the primary variants, that in a couple of months, cases could actually start going up in earnest. I don't think that that is going to be the case, but that's not what we're talking about now. What is going on right now is that because of the terrible weather in much of the country last week, testing and reporting of cases was slowed down. So most likely there were declines that were reported late last week, which were bigger than the real declines because weather stopped a bunch of testing and reporting. And now as the reporting gets caught up and people who should have been tested Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but weren't because of bad weather are getting tested and are coming back positive. And so the numbers are kind of leveling off and appearing a bit higher. I don't think this is a real reversal. I think this is an artifact of the reporting changes because of the weather. Now, in terms of deaths, the numbers have also improved dramatically. Unfortunately, the numbers were so bad when it comes to deaths that even these improved numbers are still completely tragic. But deaths are down 38% from their mid-January highs. Deaths were peaked at 3,400 per day. They're down to about 2,100 per day. Now, 2,100 per day is outrageous. It's an outrageous tragedy every single day. But it is a decline of 38%. And similar to cases, a small uptick in the last couple of days, also believed to be because of lower reporting due to the bad weather late last week, which is now recovering, and the data will sort of be shuffled around. And I think we'll be back to kind of normal day-to-day tracking within another 48 to 72 hours. We'll know in the next 4 to 6 days whether there really is a reversal here, cases and deaths leveling or even going up a bit, or whether this is just a reporting artifact and cases and deaths will continue down. Now, much like case and death reporting was slowed down because of the bad weather, so were vaccinations slowed down. We had actually gotten up to averaging about 1.7 million shots per day, but because of the bad weather, and important to understand, the bad weather affected vaccinations in the states with the bad weather, like Texas, for example. But the bad weather also affected shipments of vaccines to more of the country. And last week, we saw vaccinations per day a drop from 1.7 million a day to 1.4 million a day. Now, that's still much higher from where we were January 20th, for example. It's not high enough. And Dr. Fauci says he's confident that the missed doses are going to be made up for in the next week or so. Let's hope that happens. And obviously, we're following that number very closely. The three numbers we're looking at closely now are cases, deaths, and vaccinations. Hospitalizations, also an important indicator to look at. Now, vaccines. In terms of vaccine news and important studies, As I said yesterday in our segment about vaccine alarmism, remember, vaccine alarmism is not anti-vax. Vaccine alarmism is something else we described yesterday. People just being unnecessarily negative about the impact of these vaccines. Although the effect on transmission by being vaccinated was not studied by Moderna and Pfizer, we are getting more and more early data from the United Kingdom and Israel, which gets us closer and closer to being able to say fully vaccinated people are able to transmit coronavirus to a much lesser degree. Two studies, one from the UK, says that 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine cut transmission risk by 86%. Now, normal caveats. This is a preprint. This wasn't studied in the phase 3 trials by Moderna and Pfizer, so it is now being studied. Preprint UK data says transmission down 86% among fully vaccinated people. A study from Israel found an 89% reduction in transmission among fully vaccinated people. This is good news, which still needs to be confirmed in peer-reviewed settings. Until it is confirmed, we should not be acting belligerently once vaccinated. Now, as far as vaccine supply, right now, and this gets to one of the main questions, which is when will person A, person B, person C be able to get a vaccine? It will vary state to state. We have seen very uneven rollouts in some states versus others. As far as vaccine supply, it looks like the United States will have enough vaccine for full vaccination of 130 million people by the end of March. Now, that's 5 weeks away. But remember that it takes up to 5 weeks to be fully vaccinated. What I mean by that is with the Pfizer vaccine, you have 21 days between dose 1 and 2. With the Moderna vaccine, it's 28 days between dose 1 and 2. And you're not considered fully protected until 7 days after your second dose. So if you get the Moderna vaccine, if you can get it by March 31st, and let's imagine you get an appointment, you get your second dose on April 28th, and that means you are not considered fully protected until roughly May 5th, that would be. Okay, so it's about a 35-day period from when you get it until when you're considered fully vaccinated. However, there is more good news, and that is that the third vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is on the way. Today, it has been endorsed for emergency use authorization by FDA staff. It now needs to go through the kind of final process for emergency use authorization. That is a 1-dose vaccine. The good news is 1 dose makes logistics far simpler, and X number of doses is good for twice as many vaccinations, right? If you have 10 million doses, but everybody needs 2, you can vaccinate 5 million people. If you have 10 million doses and people only need 1, you can vaccinate 10 million people. The cautious possible downside on the J&J vaccine, supply is unclear. And I think we'll just leave it there because unclear is basically tells you everything we need to know. We just don't know yet how much supply of that will be available, how quickly. So I think where the facts lead us is to continued cautious optimism. As far as variants go, we'll be interviewing Dr. Eric Topol again soon about the effectiveness of these vaccines against the 3 most prevalent variants. That's a topic of concern right now. It's looking okay, and we'll have more information about that soon and in our interview with Dr. Eric Topol. The more we learn about various diets around the world, the more we realize that some of the healthiest diets where folks are living the healthiest and the longest are heavily plant-based. And one of our sponsors, Just Egg, is a great place to start. Just Egg cooks and tastes just like real eggs, but it's made from plants. It has less saturated fat, no cholesterol, packed with protein. I've been cooking with Just Egg at home, and you can use it in so many different ways, just like traditional eggs, omelets, scrambled eggs, French toast, banana bread, one of my favorite dishes, pad thai. It also is better for the planet, generating 93% fewer carbon emissions and 98% less water than conventional eggs. You can find Just Egg at lots of grocery stores, Whole Foods, Kroger, Amazon Prime Now, and Instacart. Check it out. Just Egg really is a great product from a company with a great mission, and I'm really glad that they're a sponsor of the show.